Hello, in this video, we're going to deep dive more into the Elastic rule format, and specifically what data needs to be included into the TOML and what data is optional. And that's a key piece there, because if we look at just the alerts that Elastic has in their documentation, they have very verbose alerts given the few fields that are actually required. Okay? And to dig into this more, first I want to look at their documentation for interacting with their API. And the API, we're not really going to touch in this section of the course. That will be a later section where we learn how to interact with it and push our alerts programmatically. But for now, we do need to reference it to check what fields that are required for our documentation. So in the API, there's a section here for creating a rule. And scrolling down here, we can see in the request body, there's required fields for all rule types, and then individual rule types here, okay? And then they have optional fields for all the rule types. So scrolling down, required fields for all rule types, all they require is description, name, risk score, severity, and type. And given that this is only 5 fields, it's interesting to see how verbose all these fields are in comparison to what is actually required. Okay, and if you look at the required fields for query, indicator, match, and threshold rules, and then another one for threshold rules down here, in this course we are primarily only going to make query and threshold rules. We can see it only adds 2 more required fields to the 5 above. If you think about it from the perspective of we only really have 7 required fields, that makes our alert documentation process a lot more digestible. Okay, so if we look at this, we can see a lot of extra fields that aren't necessary for alert creation through the API. So for example, all this metadata doesn't need to be there. The author doesn't need to be there. Indexes, language, references, these are all optional fields. Now, just because these fields are optional doesn't mean we shouldn't require it. It's just helpful to note down exactly what fields are required by Elastic. What we can do to help illustrate this is to grab the raw alert. And let's put this in our VS Code. I'm going to call it example.toml. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is delete all the fields that are optional. So we have metadata, author, from index language license, name we need, references we can get rid of, rule ID we can get rid of, all these, query we need, all this MITRE optional. And if you boil it down into only what is required, this isn't really too bad to look at, right? We can see it all filters down into just the name, description, risk score, and the query. Okay, and what I'm going to do is keep this file and save it as required_fields.toml. And this will be a good reference point if we need a quick look back on what fields are required without digging into the documentation every single time. And what we can do is put in a comment. As just a reminder that if the type is threshold, then there needs to be a threshold field. And this will essentially serve as our reference document. All right, this is a quick video just illustrating the minimum required fields for an Elastic alert. I'll catch you in the next video.